Susan. I'm going to be showing you how to make the pleats on Eleanor's. So I'm making a size 8, and I've already cut out the front bodice, and I took the bodice and I ironed a crease down the center so I could easily indicate where the center of the bodice is. All the measurements that I'm going to be using are for a size 7 or 8. So make sure that you're using the chart or referring to the chart in the pattern for your specific measurements, and don't just go by the measurements that I'm using. Okay, so for the size 7 or 8, the first pleat is going to be a 1/2 inch away from center and 5.5 inches long. So I need to take my ruler and I'm going to align that center crease that I ironed in the bodice with the 1/2 inch line on the ruler. Okay, and then I'm going to just draw a line starting at the 5.5, and I just go up. So I'm going to do that on either side of the dress, and then we'll move on. Okay, so now you can see the lines that I drew on either side of center. So each one of them are a 1/2 inch away from the center and 5.5 inches long. Now the second and third pleats on Eleanor's are angled out to the side, so you can't easily just draw the line like we did on the first 2 pleats. So what you need to do first is mark the top and bottom of the second and third pleats. So on the size 7 and 8, the second pleat is 1¼ inch from the first pleat, and same with the third pleat, it's 1¼ inch from the second pleat. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to go align it with the first line that I drew. And actually I'm going to do this side first. And I'm basically going to align the line that I drew the first time with the 1¼ mark on the ruler, and make sure that the top of the ruler is aligned with the top of the bodice. So since the bodice is curved, I want my ruler to kind of always be at the very top of the bodice. So I'm right there on the 1¼ mark. And again, this pleat for the size 7/8 is going to be 5.5 inches long, but I'm only going to mark the top and the bottom of the pleat. So I'm going to start right here and just draw a little mark at the top, and then go down to the 5.5 inch mark and make a little mark right there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So let me see. So you can see that's the bottom mark, and right up here, it's kind of hidden by the design in the fabric, is the top mark. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to mark the third pleat just like I marked the second pleat. And you can see I moved my ruler all the way up to where the top corner of the ruler is at the top of the bodice. And you can barely see it, but that mark right there is kind of the bottom mark from the second pleat, and it's aligned with that 1¼ mark on the ruler. And then at the very top, that's the mark that I made before, and that's aligned with that 1¼ mark on the ruler. So again, I'm just going to mark the very top, and again at the 5.5 inch mark. All right, I'm going to go repeat that on the other side. Okay, so now I have all of the top and bottom markings for my second and third pleats. So you can see right here is that center crease that I ironed at the very beginning, in the first pleat on either side of center. And then I've got 4 marks across the top. So there's one right there, which you can barely see, but there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then there's corresponding marks at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now since the second and third pleats are going to be angled out, I need to measure out towards the side of those bottom marks in order to angle out the pleat. So for the first pleat, the second pleat, I'm going to angle it out 1/4 inch, and the third pleat I'm going to angle out 3/8 of an inch. So to do that, I'm going to take my ruler, and this time I find it easier to use this seam allowance ruler, just because it's got so many markings down here, and it's just a little bit easier for me to use. So for this first one, I'm just going to align that ruler right there, and I'm going to make another dot just 1/4 inch out. So I've got my ruler right there, and I'm going to make another dot right there. And then for the second dot, I'm gonna align it, and I'm gonna make a dot 3/8 of an inch out. And I'm gonna repeat that on the other side. Okay, so now at the bottom I have 6 dots. So I've got the dot that's 3/8 of an inch away from the original dot, and then the dot that's 1/4 inch away from the original dot, and then same thing on the other side. So now what I'm gonna do is align the most outer dot. Sorry, I'm having a hard time with my ruler one-handed here. Okay, so the outer dot with the dot up at the top of the dress. So that's the 3rd pleat mark at the top, and then this is the new 3rd pleat mark at the bottom, and I'm just going to draw a line between the two and do the same thing with the 2nd pleat mark, and then same thing on the other side. Okay, so now all of my lines are drawn, and it's kind of hard to tell, but these outer 2 on either side are angled just a little bit. Now this is the size 8, so the pleats are going to be spaced furthest apart in this size versus any other size. So if you're making some of the smaller sizes, these lines are going to be much closer to each other. Okay, so now what we're going to do in order to sew the pleat in, we're actually just going to take the dress and fold it along one of these lines. So I like to start on the outside and work my way in. And essentially, I'm just going to fold the dress right along one of those lines that I drew. So you can see the line right there, and I'm just going to fold right along that line. And what I like to do in order to indicate the bottom of the line, since I can't see it once it's folded, is I like to place a pin there. So I'm going to do that, and I'll show that to you in just a second. Okay, so now I have the dress properly folded on that last pleat, and I've got this pin right here to kind of act just as a stop sign for my stitching. I just placed it at the very bottom of the line, so it's kind of hard to tell here. The line ends kind of right where that pin is placed. So now I'm going to take this over to my machine, and I'm going to sew right along this crease right here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The 1/4 inch seam allowance is crucial in order for the dress to line up properly with the lining. So I highly advise measuring your pleats after you've sewn to ensure that they really are 1/4 inch, or else your lining will be off. So I'm going to go sew this, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've sewn that first pleat, and again I advise, at least the first time you make this dress, measuring the pleats. So if I measure this one up, it's exactly a 1/4 inch, and that's what it needs to be. So now I can remove that pin, and essentially I just repeat that process for the next 5 pleats. So I'm just going to fold it along the next next line, place a pin at the bottom, sew, and continue across. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what the end product looks like. Alright, so I've sewn all of the pleats, and now I'm just going to take this over to the iron, and I'm going to iron the 3 pleats on the right towards the right, and the 3 pleats on the left towards the left. So I'll do that and show you what it looks like. Okay, so now you can see that I've finished all the pleats and I've ironed them all to the side. I like to add a stay stitch at the top just to ensure that the pleats stay going the direction I want them to go in the continuing steps of the dress. I hope this helps.